Cool. The CDC doesn't require masks if unvaccinated in school. They make recommendations. It's recommended. What the board voted on last June unanimously is requiring. So everyone in Zoom land is aware, neither the district nor the board has the authority to alter the required immunizations for entry into public school. Rather, this is set by the PA Department of Health. They're essentially using a loophole, the old carrot and stick approach. If you're vaccinated, you get the carrot or the reward, no mask. If you're unvaccinated, you get the stick or the punishment, mask up. This is also called coercion. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, criminal coercion is a second-degree misdemeanor. You can be charged with criminal coercion if you intentionally restrict someone else's freedom by threatening to expose a secret that would subject a person to contempt, ridicule, or hatred. Now, I'm not going to hold my breath on the Lehigh County District Attorney Jim Martin bringing criminal charges against the district and or the board. But the district shouldn't also hold their breath on not being brought up on civil suit under the same context of the law. I'll just assume you ran everything by what you did this past June through your legal counsel. What you're doing is reprehensible. You will now be knowingly exposing the personal health information of our children, potentially setting the stage for vaccine shaming. And for what? The current COVID vaccines are not FDA approved. I repeat, the COVID vaccines are not FDA approved. They have been granted emergency use authorization. We have no idea what the long-term side effects or the ramifications are. Children's ages 1 through 17 have the lowest incidence of COVID positive tests. COVID positive children ages 1 through 17 have a 0.1% chance of spreading the virus. COVID positive children have a 0.030, which is barely measurable, mortality rate, less than 300 nationally since March of last year. We've gotten so carried away, folks, with the COVID craziness. We seem to have forgotten that COVID isn't the only risk virus that impacts our kids. Just this July 9th, NBC News article, the CDC issued a health advisory that the RSV virus is unexpectedly spreading. Now, mind you, this is a virus that normally spreads in the winter months. It kills, on average, 500 people a year. So what does this all mean? It seems pretty ironic to me that around the same time, the CDC, Governor Wolf, President Biden authorized the removal of masks, unvaxxed or vaxxed, that a virus that has been around forever all of a sudden spikes in June. What has the mask done? There is no data. You can scream the word science until you're blue in the face. You show me quantifiable data that the masks have stopped or slowed the spread. I'd love to see it. You can't produce it. Nobody has. Nobody. You know what the mask has done? It's suppressed our own child's natural immune system, period. I don't care what the two health systems in Lehigh Valley say. They're not responsible for the health of my kids' well-being, and they're just carrying water for the CDC. You find me a medical provider. I don't care if it's in the Lehigh Valley or elsewhere. You find me a medical provider that will oppose, that has an opposing opinion on the COVID vaccine, and I'll show you someone that's lost their job, credibility, and has essentially been canceled. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Mike Babb followed by Michelle Martucci. And Mr. Babb will be in just a second. All right, Mr. Babb, you should be able to speak. Mr. Babb, you're currently on mute.
Now?
We can hear you now.
Tonight, I would like to discuss the board's current position on a mask protocol in the schools. The current direction from the board can be classified as coercion, providing incentives to seek the vaccine, such as only those who are vaccinated may remove masks, is a form of coercion. According to the Nuremberg Code, coercing someone to take an experimental product is a violation. The COVID shots are currently in phase 3 of clinical trials. Emergency use authorization does not change that. Regardless of the board's direction, we now have 92 concerned citizens of Salisbury families that have made the decision to send their children to school maskless. Unless the board decides to change their direction, they will certainly be putting teachers and administrators in an unenviable situation. I ask the board to use common sense, make masks optional for all students, regardless of vaccination status. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, we have Michelle Martucci followed by Emily Pojanowski. And Michelle should be available now.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Martucci, 1003 Public Road, Bethlehem, PA 18015. I'm speaking regarding the health policy on tonight's agenda. I was disappointed at the last meeting when the board voted to keep masks for unvaccinated students, but allow vaccinated students to go mask-free. Your guidance you're following is from the CDC, which accounts for all states, and some other states are not as far along with their vaccination rates. Here in PA, we're doing great with the vaccination rates, and the PA Department of Health lifted mask mandates. Why are we not following that guidance, which hits closer to home? Here in PA, all ages can go to an indoor movie mask-free or even sit well closer than 6 feet to another family at an indoor restaurant unmasked. But in our schools, we're still forcing masks on all. I wonder how much extra time it will take out of the education for a teacher to have to run through a roster through each class at higher grade levels when they switch from class to class and determine who should be wearing a mask and who would not need one, or pause to do constant mask breaks that are recommended. And what happens if someone is unmasked and should be wearing one? Does the teacher call them out on it in front of the entire class? It's like you're putting a scarlet letter on these kids. Bullying is already an issue. Why would you want to add to that? Parents who prefer to have their child wear a mask already have the right to do that. All we're asking is you give the same right back to us parents who would like control over our own child's health and well-being. We also would like the choice to decide whether or not children to get the vaccination and not feel like we're being forced to do it. We don't force people to get the flu shots or wear a mask if they don't. So why would we do it for this? If you decide tonight that you'll continue the same guideline you voted on last meeting, I certainly hope that on every single agenda at every single meeting, you get to re-vote on that because you're going to reevaluate it. And I hope the parents will continue to speak up. I'd also like to say that I'm not a fan of public speaking myself, but I continue to do it anyway. I know a lot of friends in Salisbury School District who cannot get the courage, but feel the same way as me. So I speak tonight, not only for my family, but for other families within our township who feel the same way, but cannot publicly speak. Thank you.
All right, we have Emily Pojanowski followed by Jackie Bartholomew. All right, Emily.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. Emily Pojanowski, 1562 Sidersville Road. I have 3 children, entering 7th, 4th, and 2nd grades. I am speaking to the board tonight as it relates to the masking of unvaccinated students. Have you considered that you no longer have the authority to require that kids either vaccinate for COVID-19 or wear a mask? The emergency order in Pennsylvania has been lifted. It has also been lifted in Lehigh County and Salisbury Township. The CDC's broad basis for authority does not extend to our school district. The CDC can only regulate the transmission of diseases between states or to prevent foreigners from entering our country and spreading a disease within our country. And as your health partner stated, her opinion is merely advisory. Also, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, which is our controlling authority for Salisbury, has not put in place any separate guidance for schools. They have actually lifted the mask order for both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals in the state of Pennsylvania. Neighboring Bucks County, which has an actual health department with a doctor that heads that department, unlike Lehigh County, which is neither, has decided that masks distract from the learning process and advised the school districts in his county that schools should be in person, should not require masks, and should get back to teaching children. Dr. Damsker also stated, and I quote, "COVID does not hurt children, and what the CDC is doing is continuing the COVID treadmill for students, and that it needs to stop. You are all part of the machine that is supplying this treadmill with power. You have the choice now to stop the treadmill or continue to perpetuate this COVID nightmare for these students. COVID is over for these kids. They are going to camps unmasked, playing sports unmasked, playing with their friends unmasked, and going shopping in the restaurants unmasked. Yet you are going to restart this COVID nightmare again for them in August. Again, I ask you, if no health emergency exists anymore, then what is your end game with masking? Parents deserve to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Jackie Bartholomew, followed by Megan Stevens. Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie Bartholomew, and I live on East Paoli Street. I'm commenting tonight on the topic of masks. I want to be very clear. If you choose to wear a mask or take whatever precautionary steps to feel safe and protected, that is 100% your right to make that choice. You will not be judged because you are making the best choice you feel is right for you and your family. That same right to choose should not be taken away from people with an opposing viewpoint. I feel it is not up to the school board, district, or anyone other than myself and my husband to make a choice on what is best for our children's safety or health. You do not know me or my child, so how could you believe you know what's best for them? Let parents make their own decision on whether they want to mask their child or not. And with that choice, no child should be segregated or discriminated against. When parents feel their right to choose what's best for our own children is taken away is when a line is crossed. I live in the district. My oldest attended Salisbury for 1st and 2nd grade, but I pulled my children right before the 2020-2021 school year began, and they have flourished. I refuse to let my child's education suffer over masks, and I believe every child should have the same experience and provided the best educational environment, all while breathing fresh air, living in happiness, and seeing each other's smiling faces. The school district and school board should get back to what they were intended to do, providing the best education possible for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Megan Stevens, followed by Jody Finley. All right, Megan.
My name is Megan Stevens, and I'm at 1241 Maumee Avenue in Allentown. I'm commenting on agenda item 3.1, the health and safety plan for fall. I know that I have the unpopular opinion amongst my community peers, and frankly, I don't care. But I agree with the decision to require unvaccinated children and staff to wear masks. Wearing masks and social distancing of 3 feet is within the recommendations from the CDC. My unvaccinated child wearing a mask harms no one, while another unvaccinated child not wearing the mask has the potential to harm others. The Delta strain of COVID is much more, which is the strain that is currently roaming around, is much more contagious than the original or any previous strains, including Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. According to the Yale School of Medicine, the Delta strain is spreading 50% faster than the Alpha strain, which spread 50% faster than the original strain. Basically, in an unmitigated environment where no one is vaccinated or wearing masks, it is estimated that the average person infected with the original coronavirus strain will infect 2.5 people. The Delta strain would spread from 1 person to approximately 3.5 or 4 people. The most at-risk people to be infected with the Delta strain are the unvaccinated. Studies show that children and adults under 50 are 2.5 times more likely to become infected with the Delta strain. Since there is no approved vaccine for children under the age of 12, that puts our elementary kids at risk. The best chance we have of keeping our schools open and not missing any in-person learning, whether by having to shut down a school for too many cases or a student having to quarantine, is to require unvaccinated children and staff to wear a mask. Also, let's give our kids some credit for understanding why they need to wear a mask. My child understands and has no problems wearing one. I know that the PA Department of Education has recommended that districts make wearing a mask optional for all students. I don't agree with that. Either we're all in or we're all out. Optional shouldn't even be an option. I would also like to address agenda item 4.1, the assistant superintendent position. I don't feel as though a student body of 1,600 students needs 2 superintendents. We have 3 schools. When Mrs. Sweeney-Hetton took the position as superintendent, she agreed to work without an assistant. If an assistant superintendent is needed for mere signatory purposes, it is not worth the 6-figure salary that an assistant superintendent earns. There should be a way that a proxy can be appointed if Mrs. Sweeney-Hetton is unavailable to do so due to vacation or illness. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and have a good night.
You too, Megan.
Okay, Jody Finney, followed by Kimberly Lechtenwalder. Jody will be up in just a second. All right, Jody.
Hi, I just want to first apologize if you see my name on there more than once. I got kicked out and I added it again. I wasn't sure if it would hold my place. So I have something written, but first I would like to address some of the great points that I think the doctor made. For starters, she said that we should have mask breaks. That's not something my child received at all, besides really lunch and maybe one other portion of the day last year. So I'm not sure where anyone who's not in that school building is saying that they saw kids receiving mask breaks. They actually had a picnic day outside in 97-degree weather, one of the last days of school, where they were masked the entire time. She also said that education is the most important thing, which I would just like to emphasize that the school should be making a decision on our children's education, not parental choices. She also said, as far as carbon dioxide, it is probably less than we think. I mean, from a doctor perspective, I would prefer words other than probably. We also slightly talked about what children were going to the nurse complaining about masks. I don't think that children are going to go to the nurse specifically to say, I don't like this mask, but I know my 9-year-old son developed pretty bad acne on his face way pre-puberty that happened literally within the first 2 weeks of going to school. And I wash our masks quite frequently and strategically. And he also went to the nurse multiple times for headaches, which is something that is not a common occurrence for him. So that's what I wanted to address first. And then I had wrote something previous to that, but I wanted to speak on her points. Again, I am here to advocate for my child and the other children of the school district. Through all of the board meetings, there's been a common trend of using phrases like follow the science and not your feelings. But depending on what professionals you ask, depends on what science they say. We have doctors, scientists, health officials everywhere telling us that masks are not necessary, kids are not getting sick from COVID, and rarely even passing it to adults. Even Wolf, like Democratic Wolf, ended the mandate. The mental health field is recognizing the effects this is having on children. My child deserves to be able to hug his friends, sit next to his classmates at lunch, and know what his teacher's face looks like. I am so sick of hearing that kids are resilient. Even though our children are resilient, we have no idea what trauma this is going to cause for them later in life. My child shouldn't have to be resilient for an illness that has less than 1% chance of taking your life. It's absolutely absurd. I have a child entering 4th grade, and I also have a child that will be attending the pre-K counts program at the elementary school this year. I've not received a definite answer from the pre-K counts program about masks, but in the spring when I registered him, they told me that when the state mandate ended, they would no longer require masks. I want to be a part of a district that promotes and accepts parental rights and stops trying to make decisions for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jody.
All right, we have Kimberly Lechtenwalder, followed by Brian Projanowski. All right, Kimberly.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kimberly Lichtenwalder. I reside at 3042 South Pike Ave, Salisbury Township. I'm 100% for optional masking of our children. It is well documented that social health directly impacts mental and physical health, and a traumatic disruption of social constructs, school, sports, church, family gatherings, has devastating effects, especially on young children and teens. Our youth were already suffering epidemic levels of depression, anxiety, addiction, eating disorders, and suicide. Yet policymakers such as yourselves choose to increase this devastation on children's mental health, even when there was no evidence that returning to normal would pose a risk to them or anyone else. Our children are not human test subjects for the pharmaceutical industry. Our school tax dollars are not meant to be spent in promoting and marketing, coordinating, or implementing medical experiments on children, and especially not within the institutions designed to provide education. My family demands that you immediately halt all COVID-19 related restrictions on our children within our public school system and prohibit any further promotion of any medical interventions, especially those which are experimental. If a school teacher is fearful of their workplace, then we suggest they follow an alternative career path rather than insist on the use of practices that can harm our children. You have been entrusted with overseeing the education of our children, and that is all. Your inhibited promotion of pharmaceutical abuse of power and may even qualify as providing medical advice without a license. My kindergartner and fifth grader will be returning to school on August 30th with no mask. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
All right, we have Brian Pojanowski followed by Anthony Keller. All right, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I do have some prepared remarks. I do just want to say I appreciate the board bringing on the doctor to give some insight into what she's seeing in the medical field. Also, highlighting what I think are some pretty important points, that being kids don't get it, kids don't spread it. Asymptomatic spread is really not seen in her practice. People already have had COVID are not getting reinfected. So add that to the 58 or 70 or whatever percent you want to use, whether it's 18 and over, 12 over, or obviously a lower percentage if you include students. You add those in. I mean, we're where traditionally medical people would want us to be when you talk about herd immunity. So, and I do appreciate the questions by the board too. In past meetings, I've kind of been struck by the lack of deliberative process here from some board members. No really back and forth. I'm sure you have committee meetings that you kind of ask questions of each other, but it was nice to see the public to see some deliberation on your part. So I appreciate that. What I did want to say is, I understand a lot of focus on the community, and this board has recently fallen on COVID-19 and the actions the board needs to take to mitigate the risk for the students of Salisbury School District. At last count, COVID-19 has tragically and sadly taken the lives of 331 Americans under the age of 18. So, public school aged children. So I can understand the attention. Although I am a bit concerned about the many other risks that may befall students that have not been adequately explored or addressed by this board. And I'd be remiss not to highlight those other risks to our children and ask the board to consider what they will do to protect our children from these risks. So during the current COVID pandemic, right, going back to last March, about 660 young persons who were under the age of 18 had died as a result of pneumonia, a highly contagious disease, as we all know. I asked, what does the board, the administration, and the health partners plan to mitigate the risk to our children? Perhaps a mask mandate for all students. Also, during that same time period, 188 young persons have died as a result of seasonal influenza. Also, as you know, a highly contagious disease. What does the board, the administration, and the health partners plan to mitigate that risk to our children? Perhaps mandate the flu vaccine for any student or wear a mask. On any given school day, the student parking lot at Salisbury High School is filled with cars driven to school by students. In 2019, over 2,000 of our young ones were killed in car crashes. What is the board, the administration, and health partners plan to mitigate the risk to our children? Perhaps mandate only the use of school-provided transportation to travel to school. Although from 2006 to 2015, there was an average of 131 school transportation-related deaths per year. What is the board, the administration, and health partners plan to mitigate that risk to our children? Perhaps cut all funding related to school transportation. Over 1,000 children die every year by means of drowning. What is the board, administration, and health partners plan to mitigate this risk? Perhaps ban all activities involving swimming, both school-related and otherwise. In 2018, there were 43 million HPV infections in the US, most in the late teens and early 20s. HPV can lead to future cancer diagnoses. The CDC, you're listening to them now, actually recommends HPV vaccinations for children 11 to 12 years old and as early as 9. What is the board's plan to mitigate this risk to our children? Perhaps mandate the HPV vaccine for any 6th and 7th graders? The CDC recommends it, right? On average, 430 people are struck by lightning every year, resulting in 43 deaths. What is the board's plan to mitigate this risk? And as you can see, I kind of got, more and more ridiculous, but honestly, what we do here is a risk assessment. We do this individually every single day of our lives. We look at the risks. We look at the risks in the group of people we're working for. You work for us and our children, and we appreciate it. But what is the risk to our children? If you try to put these drastic, what I consider drastic mandates and, to a certain degree, discrimination, requiring masks for unvaccinated kids, seriously, what are you going to do about the other risks that, you could easily address as well? Thank you. Thank you for the board's time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, we have Anthony Keller followed by Thomas Spinner. And I'm not seeing Anthony. Let me see if. Okay, hang on 1 second. Okay, Anthony, are you there?
I don't see Anthony either, Mr. Taylor.
It's end up under Christina Akshay, and they just unmuted her. Is Anthony there? Christina, is Anthony on your counter now?
Hello.
All right, Anthony, we got you now.
Hello. All right, cool. Anthony Keller, 1451 Stanley Avenue. I just have a couple points because basically everybody else touched on some good stuff. As far as the vaccine or shot goes, if you and your children have received the shot, then you guys are good to go. It doesn't matter what I do, what my kids do, what anybody else does. And all this talk about following the science, next time you guys have a box of masks in front of you, flip it over, read the label. It clearly states does nothing for viruses. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Easy peasy.
All right, we got Thomas Spinner coming up, followed by Jennifer Ball. All right, Thomas.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thomas Spinner, 1315B Fairfax Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania, 18103. Just want to make a couple very short comments here. I know there's already been a lot of information presented tonight by the public. Again, this is in regards to 3.1 on the agenda and the optional masking. What I want to say is that, it's COVID, and here we are a year and 4 months later since the lockdowns back in last March. And the more I think about this and the more I try and teach even my own children, the question I have for you is who is responsible for safety? Okay, this is a question I ask a lot of people in my profession as well. And the answer should be ourselves. Ultimately, the risk falls back to us to be able to make the decision. And I was actually happy to hear someone even talk about pro-masking versus the folks that have been on the opposite side of the fence. That shows that people are doing their own homework and making their own choices in regards to their risk level. Okay. Ultimately, I feel, and what I think is the correct path here is that we should be able to make that choice. If people do not feel comfortable, by all means, please wear a mask. You know, I know if I'm ill or if I have a cold, you'll see me walk around out in the stores with a mask on. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's about my risk and what I need to teach my own kids. Just like I said, you're going to cross the street. Is the car responsible for your safety while you're in the crosswalk? You are responsible. So again, I think everyone should try and ground themselves back to that thought is who's responsible. And the answer should be ourselves. And if we don't know the information, we should be trying to find out the information for ourselves, which a lot of people clearly have been working on very diligently on both the board side as well as the public. And from my perspective, I support optional masking. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we have Jennifer Moll followed by Russell Landy. Jennifer?
Hi, good evening. Jennifer Moll, 1606 Graham Street. Thank you for taking the time for us to give our points of view. First and foremost, I just want to put out there that I'm a little disheartened. I wasn't going to speak today, but as I watched while people speak, I see board members on their phone. I see board members having side conversations. I'm a board member on several other boards myself, and this is really frustrating. I think we owe it to our parents to pay attention to what they have to say, even if we don't agree with them. That's all I have to say on that. I'm not going to, beat a dead horse. I believe masking should be optional. I respect other people's views. I am in the social work field, and I believe that we should have our right to our own autonomy. And for those to say that, oh, we masked last year and it was fine. It wasn't. You can't make that consensus for everybody. There was kids that weren't in school that did virtual because they couldn't handle the mask. So we can't make these broad statements. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the statistics. I have a lot of the statistics. I have the JAMA report and stuff like that, but that's already been said by my fellow parents. But all I ask is in the future, just be respectful and pay attention when your parents are speaking. That's all. Thank you.
All right, we have Russell Landy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So those who wear masks versus those that don't in the school, isn't that sort of like you're breaking people down? Isn't the whole thing about diversity and togetherness? Now it's going to be those against those. I don't really get that. That's like a step backwards. The other thing is that if parents don't feel confident about others not wearing masks, then their child should just wear a mask. I don't know why that's such a hard concept. It's that simple. The other thing is, as you're hearing from other parents, nobody wants the school board to tell us how to live our lives any more than we want our government to tell us how to live our lives. And the school board is doing just that. You're telling us how to live our lives by whether or not we wear masks or don't wear masks. Also, CDC, you've heard it by all the parents and everybody else. It's like, it seems like the board is going out on like your own thing and just making your own decisions. The other thing is absent from this whole discussion is, where was the medical professional that would speak, say, in I don't want to say favor, but in regards to masks are optional is an okay idea, or no masks at all, or is an okay idea? How come there was just one professional that sort of the board chose to be in favor of masks? Almost like, well, that's the decision that the board made, and that's it. It doesn't matter about anybody else. The other thing is, the other speaker who had stated that, the rights, we're promoting the rights of the parents. That's what this should be about here as well. The parents make the decision, not the members of the school board, because I don't know if you recall at the last school board meeting, and again, I always say this, I've already put myself at risk. I know that putting that all aside, the point is that the board sometimes, a lot of times, all the time, is just doing what they want to do, and it comes off as very arrogant. And when Mr. Gatanis stated last meeting, oh, thank you for the enlightening comments, Mr. Landy. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's arrogant. And what one board member does reflects every board member. So if that parent just said some of the board members are not listening, they're on their phones, it's reflecting every single one of you. Just like if you're a police officer or a doctor and you do something, it reflects on all of you. So when you make a statement that, like that, it just doesn't bode well. And the one other thing I want to bring up is the board interested in having to be the experimental organization if litigation comes around and somebody sues the board or the school district over this mask thing? Because that could be very expensive. And I don't know if the board has qualified immunity. And if nobody knows what qualified immunity is, it's when certain occupations, you can't sue an individual personally. But if there's no qualified immunity for the board, every single board member is putting yourself at risk. So I am in favor of optional masks, as all the other parents, with the exception of one parent who said no, that it should be mandatory. Thank you for your time.
All right, we have Jennifer Connect, followed by Susan Span. And Jennifer.
My name's Jennifer Connect at 1845 Church Road in Bethlehem. I'm not going to reiterate what so many have already said. I just simply want to say, please let us parents make the decision for our own children. Thank you.
All right, and then we have Susan Span. Susan?
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for giving us all the opportunity to speak. I have 3 high schoolers. Last year, I had 3 children in the high school. They've lost most of the year of their education. I was very disappointed at how long it took to get them back in person at all. I think waiting until February, although it was very conservative, set them back a ways. But I felt that we did that so we could do our part to slow the spread and keep everybody safe. But here we are almost a year later, and we're still doing the same thing. Everybody's healthy. Everyone's going to work. Even my children are going to work. They're seeing their friends. They're doing all of this. But to walk into the school and have them marked with masks if they have not been vaccinated, I think all the division that there is in the world right now, we're just creating more of a microcosm of division in the schools. And I firmly believe that masks should be optional. If you feel that you are at risk, wear a mask, but do not force someone who feels that they are not at risk to wear a mask. That's not how the immune system works. And there are, as far as I know, no comprehensive studies what the effect of long-term mask wearing is, such as there's actually no long-term studies of what the vaccine effects are. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I really hope that we go mask optional.
All right, Mr. Katanis, that is the last public comments for agenda items tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, that takes us to 1-9 motion. I did a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting dated June 16th. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments about the minutes? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to payment of bills. Okay, we have some general fund expenditure and athletic general fund and laptop account for a total of $284,944.14. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Treasury reports. We have a treasury report listed here for May of 21. Can I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that treasurer's report? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to the report of the Secretary of the Board, and that would be Mr. Taylor.
All right, Mr. Canis. Just want to go over some board procedure items tonight in regards to meetings. In August, the board will be returning to in-person meetings at the administration building. So just want to go over the board policy 1B.2 on meetings. Section 4, the location. The board policy holds that all regular meetings shall be held at the administration building unless otherwise ordered by the board, and all meetings shall be held at 7:30 p.m. once again, unless noted otherwise by the board in advance. All of the meetings will be live streamed via our YouTube channel. They will no longer be on Zoom for public viewing or public comment. So once again, all meetings will be available to be viewed live streamed via our YouTube channel, but no longer through Zoom. So you will not need to sign up for Zoom anymore. You can just go onto the YouTube channel to view the meetings live, or after they have concluded, you can watch them archived as well. So they'll be immediately available for you. You won't have to wait for us to upload them to the website. Then board policy 1B.2 meetings, section 8, hearing of citizens. Once again, the board policy is a member of the public present at a meeting of the board may address the board in accordance with the board's rules. The board reserves the right to set reasonable limits on the time permitted for residents to address the board. In cases where the number of residents wishing to address the board is voluminous, the board reserves the right to limit public comment portion of the meeting to a reasonable amount of time and provide an opportunity for all residents who did not have an opportunity to speak to prepare a written statement for the board. Such written statements must include the resident's name, address, and telephone number, and must be provided to the superintendent within 1 week of the board meeting in which the comments were restricted for time reasons. Where such comments are provided in a timely manner with all necessary information provided in the document, they shall be disseminated by the superintendent to all board members who shall review them. Public comment will be for in-person at the board meeting. And there's also the option to send a correspondence ahead of time to the meeting be read if necessary. The board will be operating with the 3-minute time limit, which is allowed per the board policy. Some additional questions are agenda items in the attachments. That question has been raised. So the attachments will be attached to the meeting minutes for approval. If a member of the public needs the attachment prior to that, it was subject to the right to know law. We are currently reviewing with our solicitor to determine what, if any, documents and or attachments are to be withheld and or redacted for the meeting minutes for the public. So we are currently in process with that to provide more transparency and to put the documents available out to the public. So I just want to share the board procedure as we are going to be shifting gears and going back to in-person and just reminding the public of what the process will be. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Taylor? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, that takes us to the Curriculum and Technology Committee. That would be Mrs. Klinger.
Good evening. Our last curriculum meeting was June 21st. And at that meeting, we had a teaching and learning update where we talked about the new ELA reading programs, which we are going to continue to look at 3 programs. The teachers are going to pilot some things. They're going to observe other school districts, talk to administrators from other school districts prior to making the final decision about what program would be the best for our elementary students. We also talked about the Algebra 2 textbook into math, which I believe we are going to approve that one. We talked about the new elementary curriculum that was put in place this past year. We would like to refine that math program more this year. We talked about the new science standards that must be implemented by 2025. We also talked about the new STEM special that will be offered to elementary students. We talked about the PA Smart grants, and each of the administrators from the 3 schools talked about the changes in the handbook for the 21-22 school year. And Mrs. Pauling also talked about the summer academy offerings to our teachers and staff, which included like book studies, workshops, curriculum writing, webinars, online courses, and independent studies. Our next meeting for the curriculum will be in September 27th at the Ad Building in person. Our August meeting is canceled because usually that's the first day of school, and we don't want to mandate that the administration and the teachers and principals show up at a meeting their first night of school. With that, I would like to move item 2.1, which is the contract between Salisbury Township School District and CLIU 20 to provide psychiatric evaluations for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, that was moved by Carol. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments regarding those moved items? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Klinger.
Welcome.
Okay, that takes us to the Operations Committee. We have item 3.1 here that is open to discussion. So we will move that for discussion, and I'll be needing a second.
Second.
Okay. All right, I'd like to open this up to conversation. Does anybody want to start off?
Mr. Gatanis, may I start?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I'd like to do is highlight in the board agenda doc there, you see 2 items. You see the plan, which was approved on June 16th. And you also see the St. Luke's documentation there in terms of St. Luke's recommendations. So those items are available for our families. I'd like to share some of the survey results that we received and just take a few minutes to share with the board. I want to make the community aware that the board has access to the full results and has had an opportunity to review that. This is really an overview for the community members as well. All right, so we did approve 21-22 Health and Safety Plan as a tentative plan, largely for our summer program, which began on June 19th. We were previously operating under a plan that required face masks inside and outside. This plan made some adjustments for our summer programming, and the board expects to revise the plan perhaps multiple times throughout the summer and the school year. A survey was sent out to families. It was in a community update. 317 families as of about 2 o'clock this afternoon completed the survey. You can see here the roles of our family. Survey responses primarily were parents and guardians. We asked parents and guardians to identify which grade level band they were in. We asked parents and guardians, should masks be required for unvaccinated students while inside our building? And you can see the yes is the blue, oops, pardon me. The yes is the blue, the red is the no, and the orange is I'm not sure. So the majority of our families are saying masks should not be required I'm sorry, let me restart this one because it was confusing. So I'm going to start the slide over in the interest of making sure I'm not confusing our public or misspeaking. This question says, do you believe masks should be required for unvaccinated staff? I believe I said students. So this is about staff. And 64.5% of our respondents said no. So
Lynn, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a comment that people can't see you sharing the screen.
Can you all see the screen?
I can see it.
Yeah, I could see it.
Okay.
I can see it.
For our community members who can't see it, it might be your Zoom window moved out of the way and you have to grab it back there by clicking on the Zoom icon in your dock or your lower bar there. Okay, second question here. Do you believe masks should be required for unvaccinated students while inside our buildings? 24% yes, 72% said no. Again, large majority of our respondents saying no and believing that our students who are unvaccinated should not be required to wear masks. We also talked about the current plan having a defined number of feet between students at lunch tables. This isn't an issue in our summer programming because we don't have as many students attending, but this would be an issue in the fall and was a significant barrier to having all of our learners in our cafeteria eating lunch at the same time. And the challenge with this is, CDC is recommending different distances, and we know we cannot do 6 feet distance and have all of our learners in our cafeterias eating lunch. For the most part, we can get close to 3 by adding an additional lunch period or some additional tables, perhaps using a gym space at the elementary and the high school. 3 feet or close to 3 feet is doable in that way. The elementary and middle school tables are approximately 3 feet apart, 3 feet wide. So that helps. The high school tables, it would be approximately 3 students sitting per table. So these results show that most families, most respondents are comfortable with their children eating in a space which is less than 3 feet, and obviously not having that mask during that time. Just a couple of other items for the board. We are looking to prioritize face-to-face instruction. Currently, masks are required on buses as part of the CDC order. So that's not in our plan, but that's a CDC order as opposed to the recommendations. Anything else that's not in our plan, we're looking to resume. We're looking to go back to pre-COVID to the extent that we can keep our students safe. Field trips and events, looking to resume those. Group use of facilities, we've had several facilities requests from outside organizations. If we have to use gym as cafeterias, that may affect these requests, as we won't be able to break down the cafeteria or the gym every day. So we'll need to be thoughtful about that. And just a reminder, we really are unable to maintain 6 feet distance in the cafeteria with all of our students. Finally, we got the CDC guidance. We received the information from St. Luke's, and PDE DOH has indicated that it's currently reviewing the updated CDC guidance and will be providing associated guidance if needed. So at this point, we don't have that information. We may have something by the end of the week. So I wanted to share the information about the surveys for our families and staff who may be on the call here tonight, and help you understand, we really do want to return to our pre-COVID activities. We want our learners to experience field trips. As a family member said, they are going out and participating in other activities. And we want to open our buildings and allow organizations to use those buildings and plan some of the events that they were not able to plan last year. So at this point, we'll open it to board discussion to determine, if and how the board would like to revise the health and safety plan. And the board can provide direction on that, and we can make revisions and then approve the plan at the August board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Okay, would anybody like to start off relative to this discussion? Audrey?
Hey, George. I was waiting to speak a little bit as a teacher. And as a teacher, if we can have the students not wearing masks, especially the elementary age kids, it would make a big difference in their learning of phonics and spelling and reading, because that, as well as just any other regular communication given to the elementary kids, was really hindered by the use of masks and shields and even the 6-foot space. It made a big difference to the students. They couldn't hear what was being said. It gives a sort of an echo as you speak if you're using the shield as well. It just makes for less conducive to learning, makes the environment less conducive to learning. So from that standpoint, from that viewpoint of being an educator, I think that I would like to agree with what the majority of our other members have answered, and say that masks should be optional for the students. If they want to wear them, they can wear them from all grade levels. I also think that any of the other changes that Ms. Funey-Hetton was reviewing makes a lot of sense, and it seems exciting, and I think it will be helpful to the overall, I want to say, attitude or the overall feeling throughout the school of schools being a joyful place to learn and a joyful place to be. If we can get that back, so long as it's not required for us to do something, then I'd say let's vote for relieving most of these requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Just to tag on to what Audrey said there too, one of the things that the doctor said before that did raise my eyebrows about was actually adding more mask breaks. That's going to interfere greatly with just the how the day is running, the flow of the day. I'm not a teacher, but I've talked to enough teachers that I know how have a rhythm in their classroom, and to have that rhythm and to break it's going to cause more harm and more delays as far as getting through lesson plans and things. So I'm definitely open to considering optional for our students in our classrooms. I just think that there's so many different things to weigh. I mean, between the safety and between the psychology and what it's doing to our kids, and enough parents have spoken up that we have to at least consider it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay, I'll piggyback right on Audrey and Joe's comments. Hearing from Dr. Fabian tonight was incredibly helpful for me to, definitely, move me off the fence a little bit. I did not know that the Lehigh Valley or Lehigh County's vaccination rate was so high out of those eligible. And I know that does not take into account half of our student population, but, hopefully we are close-ish to, our 5 to 12-year-olds being able to be vaccinated. I would like to see the wording in our document say that masks are strongly encouraged for those who are unvaccinated. I know, from my perspective, like I'm going to send my 2 unvaccinated children to school with masks, with, direction on when they should be wearing them during the day. Yeah, I think that's all I have on that for right now. So I'm also in favor of sort of backing down on our language a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Can I jump in?
Okay, Becky.
Yep, I'm on the other side of the fence here. I'd like to clarify one thing though. One of the parents said that we had chosen the doctor to support our position. I just want to make it clear, she is our school physician. That's why she was on the call. We had no idea what she was going to be saying, or at least I didn't. I mean, she was just, that's who we have for our school physician. I sort of wrote something out so that I could say this. You elected us to make the best decisions possible for all of our stakeholders using our best judgment and facts. I don't have a medical degree, nor the ability to expertly analyze medical studies. That's why we as a district have a health network. Ultimately, I want what you want, which is a return to normalcy. From my perspective and from what I'm hearing from these experts, the only way to do that is to take the necessary safety precautions, which means either to wear a mask or get vaccinated to wipe out the virus so we can return to our pre-pandemic lives. Unfortunately, this is a disease that often presents asymptomatically, so we don't, you don't know if you're spreading it to somebody else. So that is obviously a big problem with it. I think to say that wearing a mask will lead to bullying is a red herring. If we choose to follow the CDC guidance, masklessness is an opt-in, not an opt-out. Some students may choose to wear a mask for any number of personal reasons, not limited to health conditions or lack of vaccination. And as such, a student's mask status will not speak to their not having been vaccinated. The only way that would become known is if a student or parent chose to reveal it. Furthermore, our guidance, our anti-bullying policies will of course remain enforced. And if there is any sort of bullying related to anything, masking included, we'll be handling that in the way we normally would with the guidance counselors, the administrators, the teachers, etc. This is not about anything other than following the science and doing what's best for everyone. Now is the time for us all to act in the common good. Wearing a mask is a small ask and what is recommended by the experts. It's not my job to second guess our team of experts and to vote based on popular opinion. This is an issue that should be decided by facts and science. You choose us as leaders to make the tough decisions and do the right thing. I've done my homework and followed the science in this issue. We're a public school charged with educating all of our students. We're now going to follow the best, most accurate, and recent public health guidance. This could change in the future as that's the scientific process, but we must follow the advice given in the present. Let's please stay focused. Our goal is to have the kids back in the classroom as safely as possible, and having unvaccinated people wearing masks is the best way to achieve that goal. Thanks.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, who wants to go next? Sam?
George, I'll go.
Oh, go ahead, Mary. Go last. I'm not going to do that to you. You go ahead.
Thank you, Sam. I've listened over and over again and made so many notes on comments. And I, as Sarah put it, was a little bit on the fence. Hearing Dr. Fabian help me decide that we don't want to take away parents' rights to decide anything for their child. I can agree with in doing the optional. My one thought and concern, and Becky, you sort of mentioned it. We're worried about if we stated that if you were unvaccinated, you would need to wear a mask, and that could cause some comments towards the students that would have them on. On the flip side, if it's optional and children have them on, those comments can still happen. So I'm comfortable with our teachers and staff and policy for bullying, for that won't happen in either case. But I just wanted to share it can happen both ways, and I would strongly hope, as Sarah put, conversations when it's appropriate and not appropriate, that the children truly understand this is optional. It doesn't mean one thing one way or the other. They are or they aren't vaccinated. We have a great group of teachers and staff that care about our kids. We all care about the kids, and I want it to be as normal as possible. So hearing all the latest, I would agree with doing optional until such time as something else comes out and we have to take another vote. This is fluid. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Sam, did you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, George. I think at this point in time, and listening to the doctor and also to the citizens, I mean, if we are going to relax our requirements per what Sarah says, make a recommendation, we should go into this eyes wide open, what's going to transpire. I mean, if you've been in a restaurant, which I have, and I'm fully vaccinated, and we were sitting here with the numbers of 56% of people have gotten 2 and 67 to 70 have gotten 1 shot. About 99% of the people in those restaurants are not wearing a mask. So basically no one's going to be wearing a mask if we go to this and this transpires and happens. So if we want to make that leap of faith, we want to do that, we can. And I just hope parents understand that, you know, the board's responsibility is to react if things do change. If things go, this is a moving target. Considering the guidance we got on July 1st, we got another one July 9th, that was 8 days. And then the state's going to weigh in on this. So this is a moving target. And it seems the will of the board, which I will go with, is to relax these regulations and go forward with that, but doesn't mean that it won't change again. And we have to be responsive to what's going on for the safety of the children and safety of the community. So yeah, let's make this leap of faith. Let's relax, whatever language the board feels comfortable with, but we'll have to continue to monitor and react accordingly, because at the end of the day, we are responsible for those children that are in our care, and we have to do what's best for them.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, David and Carol, which of the two of you want to go last? Well, I'll be last, second last. All right, Carol, do you want to go? Carol? You're on mute, Carol. All right.
Sorry.
All right.
This is a very hard decision. And as a board member, our job is not easy, but I want people to know that we care more than you can imagine about your kids. And we want to do the best for your kids, whatever best for their health, whatever best for their welfare, whatever best for their learning. That's what why it makes it so hard to make these decisions. We hear you. I've been out in the world, and very few people wear masks anymore. But the most individuals who are wearing masks are children, which I guess parents have instilled in them that they don't have the vaccine and they must wear the mask. But I understand what you're saying. I can't wait for normal at school. I just want to see all our kids go back to normal the way it was before. And most people aren't wearing masks right now. Now, if you go in a hospital, if you go in a doctor's office, if you go in public transportation, you must wear a mask, and that's your responsibility. I know parents have rights, and I hear you that you want the choice. So I guess I would go with optional mask, and it is up to each parent. But please know that we do care. We do hear you when you talk. We hear what you want. We're just in between a rock and a hard place. And it's very hard for us to make everyone happy. And you must realize that what we decide tonight is not the end all right now. We're going to continually get direction on what to do. We continually have to watch what's happening with this virus. So we try very hard, and I guess I would go with optional. It's up to the parents.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Mr. Hattinger.
Again, this is a tough one because probably you could tell by my question to the doctor, my view on this is completely different than probably the way that I've voted most of the time. But looking at the things that I've seen and everything yet, I don't think we voted wrong, nor would I guess that we should probably change what we've done. I hear what the parents have to say of the people who have spoken, and I see by the survey that most of the people that have responded feel that way too. My concern still is that I'm not a doctor. We decided to put our faith in the people who know and know better than we do. And we were willing to go with them. Has nothing to do with any of these other things. It really doesn't. It's about safety, security, and the health of your children based on this one item that everything has been based on lately. Let's face it, it's changed our whole world in the last year. So to act like it's not important would be foolish, and it hasn't gone away. It's not as bad, but because 90% of people aren't wearing the money outside, these children are going to be together every day. This isn't going into a restaurant. It's not going into Walmarts and passing by someone you're not going to see for the next 6 months. This is the children that are going to be around every single day, the same people every day. And I guess before I was at least thinking, I know where they're not getting it, and that's in school. Because that's the one place where we could control quite probably easily what the children were doing. We see the ones we can't control, which are the teenagers, the later older teenagers, and the college kids. They're the ones in the group that are still getting it. And that's because we don't control any of that anymore. And they're in decision-making mode, which usually means I'm doing what I'm going to do. So I know there were COVID parties where they pretty much said, just going to throw care to the wind, you know, and we're going to meet like we always did, and that's it. And that's why a lot of this has happened. I don't see it as we're taking the rights of the parents. I don't see it as an issue of rights. I saw it as an issue of me deciding what was the safest for these kids. And I hear all these other things, and I'm not arguing that it isn't better for them to be face to face without a mask on. I mean, I don't think any of us has to argue that. We know that. The question is, should they still be wearing masks if they're not for their safety? That's the question. And I've got 17 grandchildren, and believe it or not, I asked almost every one of them about masks, and not one of them has an issue with it. Not one. Not one told me they were having problems at school because of masks. Not one said that they were bullied because of masks. Not one of them said they even really cared about wearing them, or that it even came up during the day. So, I mean, that's the best I can do because I'm so far beyond grade school. But the issue, you know, so the question really is still the same as it was the last time we voted. Has anything really changed to make us feel that there is no threat? And I just don't see it yet. Even though I don't feel that way personally. For the children, I still see the same threat as we did a month ago when we voted to keep it in there until our people advising us feel it's safe. So I guess I'm saying I'd rather not vote for that. I mean, I would hate to be the one out, but I think maybe I think it should stay until we know. And and it isn't, school didn't start yet, so it's not like it has to change right now. I know it affects the kids in school right now, but even those, my grandchildren that are there, it doesn't seem to bother them. So I think it bothers the parents a whole lot more than it bothers the kids, really. But that's my own view on that. So I guess that really doesn't belong here. But I really don't see any reason yet to change it based on the health issues. I think we're going in the right direction. I'm so happy to hear that with COVID, but I want it gone. And if wearing masks for another or 2 months makes it better, I'm willing to say yes to that. But I don't see any great reason not to do it still. And I certainly, our health providers don't. And that's the thing that bothers me, since I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Even this doctor, our doctor, every doctor I've talked to says, but we don't know. And it's that we don't know that bothers me. Could it come back like overnight? What are we going to do if we get cases in the school? Everybody going to be wearing masks again right away? I mean, I imagine yes. So are we willing to take that risk yet, or do we want to push it as long as we can and hope that it, you know, we end most of it before this, or something else happens? I don't know. I know it's not going to just go away on its own. So I guess I would have to say I would still vote to keep it the way it is right now.
Thank you, David. Okay, that leaves me. There's a very compelling argument you made there, Dave. But I think I'm still going to stick with the idea of making it optional, because I feel the what I've been hearing about the negative effects on the students, the kids, in my opinion, outweighs the risk in them potentially getting it. That's how I feel about that, and the risk involved is so minimal, and I think it's just a bigger issue relative to them feeling them wearing it, and that's what makes me feel the way I do. So my opinion is to make it optional, and we just got to keep in mind that being optional now doesn't mean it will stay that way. Things could get better, they could get worse, but nevertheless, it is fluid, and we'll have to change it one way or the other as time progresses. So that's my feeling on that. So it looks like we have the majority of the board saying that we would like to make it optional. So at this point, I guess, Lynn, do we just tentatively change it until something else happens in the future? Where are we at with this decision?
So we have a couple of options. We can revise the plan and vote on it at our August meeting, and then submit that plan to the state. We are required to submit the plan by July 30th through our e-grant system for the ESSER funds. It's a condition of the ESSER funds. So we could do that. I don't know if we have any other options. We do have summer programming right now, so the decision could affect kids in summer programming. We also have some athletic programs occurring right now. We could revise and call a special meeting to vote on the revision. That would be another option.
Would you rather have it revised before it needs to be submitted on the 30th rather than waiting to the August meeting?
That would be preferential, although I can submit it not approved. There are districts who don't have July board meetings, so they're required to submit it whether they have a July board meeting or not. I would certainly prefer to submit it having been approved, but I could indicate to the state that it's a draft.
But Lynn, it was already approved by the board, so you can submit the one that you voted on last June, and then once the board votes on a revised health and safety plan, whether that's done at a special meeting or August, and then you just, because you provide them with the link, they're going to have any revision that the board makes, because it's going to be a moving target with guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So
the only disadvantage of doing that is we're not changing it for kids who are involved in programs right now.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, was how much summer programming is left in our buildings. I know that sports teams will start to practice before our August meeting. Yeah, so I'm wondering if calling a special meeting just to vote on this would be our best option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
So
and one thing we should clarify with parents, and I think Carol brought it up, we don't have the authority to stop mask wearing on transportation in our buses. That's mandated. So don't burn your mask just yet. Your kid's going to have a mask if he takes a bus, and he's going to have to wear it. For a person that's flown on a plane and been on a bus, they are pretty adamant about that, or they won't let you get on that. So that's a nuance that you know, we're not relaxing that, nor can we. It's a mandate. So that still has to be in place for children on transportation on our buses.
It's a good reminder.
And that's not currently in our plan, as that's not our decision. That's an order.
Do we need, should we list that in there for clarity?
Yeah. Yeah, we should emphasize that or bold it out so people see that, because they'll be like, why couldn't you get on the bus, or yada, yada. Well, you don't have a mask. And, or maybe at first we want to have them on the bus to provide them. I think we do. But that's something that we have to make sure it's clear with the public that's not going to be rescinded or edited at this meeting.
Yeah, it's just not up to us.
Yeah, just, I think it'd be a good idea just to have it in there as an FYI.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like the direction from the majority of the board is to revise the plan to reflect mask optional.
And I have one question. Can I ask a question?
Certainly, Carol.
On those surveys, was that all those responses were for inside, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when you talk about athletics, if they're outside, which they will be mostly in the fall, do we have any, are we mandating masks or not mandating masks, or how's that going to work?
So we're not mandating. Our current plan, and the CDC does not recommend masks outside. So we have not been requiring masks outside. The challenge with some of the athletics is strength coaching, performance, the weight room, they are inside. So at this time, they're required to wear masks inside if they haven't provided vaccination information.
Okay.
And we still have to follow the same criteria, Lynn, relative to numbers of cases, eventually having to close the school if it had to be closed, or if you hit a certain number, all that criteria is going to remain the same?
We haven't received any direction on that. That criteria was part of the attestation form that we agreed to. So we don't have any updated information about what will be required, if anything is required, for closing schools as a result of a number of cases for this fall.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna just go on the basis that it's gonna be changing, and per Christine's comment, I guess we could still send it because the thought is we will be sending that to the state.
So if we're going to call a special meeting, that becomes a non-issue. We can call a special meeting and approve it and send the approved plan. We could also decide to change our practice for the summer for the athletes and for the students in our summer programming. I guess my preference would be to call it a special meeting and approve it. And then if we have revisions we need in August, that we would be revising again.
Okay, so ultimately what it amounts to is everybody fine with having an additional meeting? And around when would it be?
We probably have to provide notice. And we have to advertise in the newspaper. Would we consider this an emergency meeting? Christine, could we consider this an emergency meeting?
I wouldn't, not an emergency meeting, it's a special meeting, which it reduces the timelines for notice. So.
Okay. So we'll look at the timeline, exactly what's needed. I don't have that right in front of me in terms of how much time we need to post in the newspaper. That's really the piece that takes the largest amount of time, posting the meeting. And then we'll schedule it for as soon as possible.
Yeah, I just don't know how people, I don't know if people are going to be, because this will be a live, will this be a live meeting?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it has to be a public meeting. Mm-hmm.
We'll do a Zoom meeting.
But Zoom is the way I should have worded it. So if anybody's out of town, they might still be able to Zoom in. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe Mr. Taylor can look at that as we go on the next discussion to get an idea of what we need to, how much time we need, so we could get a general idea if we can do this next week.
And I'm just going to ask, so we're going to just have another meeting and then we'll have a roll call vote, correct?
We'll have another meeting with a revised plan that I will draft based on the feedback of the majority of the board with the mask optional language, as well as the bus language. And then the board will vote at the special meeting affirmatively or negatively to support or not support the plan.
Okay.
And then regardless of how that, I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick, and so our old plan is in effect until we vote on the new plan. So nothing changes until we vote on this amended plan. Even though we have consensus, we have to vote and pass this before a change is made. I just want to make that clear with the public too, because that doesn't mean your child, if he's at summer school, stop wearing a mask until we pass this new guidance.
And Lynn, the public notice for a special meeting is at least 24 hours in advance of the time of convening the meeting specified in the notice. Now, I don't know what morning calls deadlines are, so that I have to defer to Mike.
The earliest possible we'd get in would be either Sunday or Monday at this point. So the safest bet would be to be like Wednesday next week. I mean, trying to do Monday, you might get in Sunday's paper, we might not.
Christine, can you just clarify for everyone why we cannot vote on this right now?
You can, well, I mean, technically you can vote on it, but you're not going to see the actual written document.
Could someone make a motion to vote on the plan amended with mask optional language and transportation requiring masks?
To be forwarded to at a later date, or how?
And then we could vote in August without the special meeting?
You can certainly do that. You would have to trust in that, you know, you can vote to amend that language. Yeah, you can absolutely do that.
Dean, wouldn't that fall outside of what, well, I guess it's a timing thing with the new sunshine laws? Wouldn't that fall outside of that?
That doesn't go into effect until the end of August.
Okay, that's okay. If this was the end of August, we would not be able to do that right now.
Correct.
But Christine, until the language comes out, it doesn't change. Or when does it change? That's my question. I don't want parents to be ambiguous so they understand when's the change happening. Just because we're voting it tonight, we don't have language yet. So when would the change occur so they know what to do so they don't run afoul? I think we owe them some clarity on that.
And I think that would be by when can the plan be revised? So I would have to defer to the administration on that. If you vote on it tonight, you can give direction for the plan to be revised and in effect Monday, whatever the date would be.
I can revise this very quickly. Can we pause the meeting for 10 minutes? Like, is that permissible, Christine, to just put the language in?
You could take a recess.
Yeah, let's do that. I could use a recess anyway. So
let's go 15 minutes for a recess, or do you need 10? What do you need, Lynn?
10
minutes. Okay, 10-minute recess. Okay, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, 10 it is.
Oh, I didn't have the longest 10 minutes. Good.
All right. I'll put that there so people can see it as we reconvene.
Lynn, can you make that a little bit bigger?
Sure.
Thank you.
How's that?
Are we all back?
Not yet.
Okay.
Lynn, it says there are optional, but can we put in there Sarah's idea strongly recommended by the board or by the school district?
Yeah, optional, but strongly encouraged.
Encouraged, yeah, encouraged, something like that, because I think that's a little firmer and maybe that'll sway some people one way or the other. So, you know.
Thank you.
That was a good recommendation.
Do we need to hold off on talking about this until everybody's back?
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, we're waiting for, do we have Christine back?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right, so I put the language up here. And then I'll show you everything else I changed, but this is the piece of the bulk of the content. This doesn't exactly make sense now with this here. So basically we're saying they're optional unless we get an order by the state or federal government that they are required.
I would maybe recommend taking that last piece out. Face coverings, masks are optional, but strongly encouraged for all student and staff, period, because the paragraph below makes it clear that state orders or local data may result in modifications.
And then I'll just add federal.
Correct, yeah.
This is the piece about the buses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does that language represent what the majority of the board requested? If so, before you vote, I want to show you the other items that were changed.
Okay. I'm comfortable with what you wrote.
And I think you captured.
Yeah, the only question I have is, and it probably isn't for this, but do we have to kind of like set up guidelines as to when we might have to, or is that covered under the second paragraph there? Like if we have to go back to mask because of surge or something of that nature, is that covered underneath the second paragraph there where we would have to revert back? We don't need to set up specific like guidelines as to when we should. No, okay. I see Christine shaking her head, so that's.
No, I think it's sufficient.
And we have an opportunity to look at this again in August before school starts.
Yep. Just asking the question.
Okay, let me just, I'm gonna scroll up quickly here. So the items that were changed here, changed the date here, changed these dates to reflect tomorrow. So effective tomorrow. As if it's approved tonight, that's our date there. We'll post it online tomorrow. We'll submit it to the eGrants ESSER tomorrow. Nothing changed here. Nothing changed here. None of that changed. And nothing changed anywhere else. I did not add the fact that we will be approximately 3 feet in the cafeteria, keeping it general. I did not add that we will be having organizations use our facilities. You know, if it's not in here, then we're in essence going back to our pre-COVID practices.
Okay.
Lynn,
unless there's something else that we want to delineate. So we will not be 6 feet apart anywhere, classrooms or the cafeteria. And I want you as the board to understand that that may have implications in terms of our case investigation and students who may have to quarantine. We don't have any information that that has changed for next year. We had fewer students who had to quarantine because we were maintaining the 6 feet. Based on the guidance of what we needed to do last year. We don't know if that guidance is going to exist this year, but I want to share that with the board and also with the community so that you're aware of that.
Yeah, Lynn, that was like the first hurdle that we had to cross over to get the kids back in the building, and understand and willing to do so.
I'm just wondering about, like, you know, visitors to our building, since we're about to start having meetings in person, you know, having outside groups in. Do we want to extend that language about optional but encouraged masking to anyone who is in our buildings?
Students, staff, and visitors?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would cover like people who are volunteering.
Christine, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be things we want to add or change in August. You know, this helps us move forward in our forward for tomorrow, but we may want to change some things in August again. We are required to update the plan every 6 months as part of the ARP ESSER.
You said we're going to get guidance from the state probably in before the August timeframe, and they're going to come out what they look at the CDCs and provide information. Once we get that, we may need to have to align this again. So this will keep us hopefully more than 2 weeks, and then we'll get more guidance as we go on and go from there.
Yeah, their language to us was basically if needed. They didn't guarantee they were sending anything.
Lynn, just a thought throwing out to the board under the physical distancing. Is the district intending to still provide like instructions, activities to occur outside, weather permitting, as much as possible?
We did provide the opportunity for teachers to do that. They did some of it last year. It's certainly an option. It's not something that I'd want to articulate here because I think it's largely been a teacher's choice. I also think we have spent a lot of time looking at security and safety of the buildings.
Okay. Just while we're revising, just throwing that thought out. So,
Lynn, do you want a comma after staff, or is that just?
What's the question?
I'm just trying to, so you don't have to edit it later. A comma after staff.
Oxford comma,
Oxford
please.
comma, yes.
That's like that's my favorite thing as an editor.
You like it, Becky?
I love it.
Yeah, some
people don't love it anymore.
I know. I'm just the contrarian. That's me.
I was under the impression if you have "and" there, that deletes the need for that comma.
Okay, George, that's a conversation. Let's take an hour and I'll explain that to you sometime.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, so can I make a motion?
Or is there other things you need to show us yet, Lynn, that changed?
No, that was all that I just want to scroll through, but I'm pretty sure that was all I changed, yeah. Okay. Let me put this in the board docs so we have it there. Jennifer or Mary on here, I'm going to share this with you. Can you actually put it in under public? Okay, thanks, Jen. All right, so we'll Thank you for being patient, and to our community members who are hanging in there with us and our staff for being patient. Okay, yes, revised is fine, Jen. And put the date 7/14, please. All right, if you refresh board docs, you should see it. Thank you, Jennifer. So that it's clear of what everybody is voting for. All right, it's there under revised plan. Okay, so now we're finally ready for the motion. And then a roll call vote, Mike.
I make a motion that we accept the health and safety plan as revised this evening.
Second.
Anybody have any other questions or comments on that? Okay. Seeing, does this have to be a roll call vote, or can we do this by?
Roll call, please.
Okay.
All right, Mr. DeFrank.
Yes.
Ms. Frick.
Yes.
Ms. Glenister.
No, and I mean, I'll go with the will of the board, but I'd like to say I'm not happy that we're going against the advice of our medical team.
So is your vote yes or no?
No.
Okay. Mr. Ganal.
Yes.
Mr. Hattinger.
For reasons I stated before, no.
Ms. Klinger.
Yes.
Ms. Nemitz.
Yes.
Ms. Ziegler.
Yes.
And Mr. Gatanis.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Okay, so this will go in effect tomorrow. I'll share it out with our team, and we will not have a special meeting, but we will add this to the August board meeting to revisit and reconsider and look at any additional data or information we may have at that time. Okay.
Okay. So are we done with that? I think so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that takes us to Personnel Committee. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you, Mr. Gatanis. For your review tonight, we have quite a few items under the Personnel Committee. With your indulgence, we're going to set 4.1 aside for discussion, but for right now, I'd like to move 4.2 through 4.20, which includes some resignations, some hirings, some building transfers, some increase in hours, our instructors that will be employed for the extended school year, our mentors that are being chosen for the 2021-22 school year, and also our substitute changes that we have. So again, for your approval, I would like to move 4.2 through 4.20 at this time.
Second.
Okay. Any
Thank
questions or comments from Mary? Okay. So those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Now that takes us back to 4.1, right, Mary?
Correct.
Okay. Did you want to leave that, Mary, or do you want me to? It's up to you.
It doesn't matter. I was just going to turn it over to Lynn to start the discussion, if that's what you were also planning to do.
Yeah, I would have. Yep. So Lynn, if you could start off with this, I'd appreciate it.
All right, great. So as the board is aware, when I was in conversations with the board about becoming the district's next superintendent, I shared with the board that I wanted to take 6 months to think about at least and analyze the positions on the leadership team. And I agreed to start the position without an assistant superintendent and try to take some time to think about what our needs are. We're in a small school district. We have a small team. Our district administrators wear many hats. In a larger district, you might have a coordinator of student services who would oversee nurses to implement best practices. Here, our middle school principal, Ken Parliament, supervises our school nurses. In a large school district, you might have a federal programs person who manages all of the grants, federal programs, ESL, title programs. Dr. Hartman, if you recall, was responsible for our ESL program. And with her retirement, that responsibility shifted to Mrs. Pauling. And at this time, I'm currently completing most of the responsibilities of both my previous and current position. And I've shared with the board the need for additional administrative support and specifically an additional administrator. As a district, we committed to completing an assistant superintendent search. We posted the position for 30 days and received 7 applicants. A team of 3 professional staff members, 3 administrators, and 1 board member interviewed 5 candidates. And following the first round interview, 2 of those candidates were invited to interview with the full board this past Monday evening. And as a result of this process, I'm nominating Mrs. Kelly Pauling for our assistant superintendent position. As the board knows, and the public probably has some indication of some of the work that Kelly's done, she's proven to be a valuable addition to our team throughout her time in our district. And the collaborative work that she's done with teachers and leaders, we've made some significant progress in modernizing our curriculum. We implemented a K9 and K-8 plus Algebra 1 math program. We're initiating an English language arts adoption for K-5. We're focusing on STEM, increasing those opportunities throughout the grades. And she also worked with updating some special education program offerings in collaboration with our special education department. So there have been some significant impacts that Kelly's collaborative work has had on the district. And I'm proud to make this nomination and offer her to for consideration to the board. And really there are 2 needs. One, the second commissioned officer who can act in my absence and also share the opportunities and the burdens of this leadership. But second, an additional administrative support at the elementary level. When we reconfigured the elementary buildings for the 2021 school year this past year, Mr. Bram, our elementary principal, worked diligently to bring those 2 buildings together to support the teachers and learners at SES. And multiple administrators have supported him. Our special education administrators each spent a day in the building supporting him. Mrs. Pauling provided significant support to the elementary building, evaluating approximately half of the teachers, coordinating kindergarten registration, the MTSS handbook, and a variety of other focus areas. So I'm nominating Mrs. Kelly Pauling for assistant superintendent, and I'm proposing, instead of filling the central office position of director in teaching and learning, creating and filling an assistant principal position for Salisbury Elementary School.
Thank you, Lynn. If I could just make a quick statement. Against popular, well, I'm not sure how popular the belief is, but it was agreed upon with our current superintendent that she would be working for 6 months on her own. It was never decided or expected that she would continue to be doing this on her own into next year or however long. But I just want to reiterate the fact that the board was aware of the fact that it would only be a 6-month trial, and that's what we did agree to. So it was never an agreement that she would be doing this indefinitely. And she showed us the reasons why she needed extra resources, and it's the responsibility of the board not only to be concerned about spending our money prudently, but when our administrative staff is falling short because it doesn't have the manpower, it's up to us to provide it for them. So, and as far as Kelly goes, I'm thrilled about having her on board, and what she has done for this district thus far is phenomenal. So I just figure while I'm talking, I could express my opinion, but you know, I could open it up to others talking.
Well,
Okay.
Mr. Dennis, if there's no other comment, I'd like to move a motion to refer the nominee to the Personnel Committee.
Excuse me, Sam. I think Joe might have something to say here.
Oh,
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I was on mute. I didn't realize it. I do that all the time. But anyway, I have a question and a comment. So first of all, my question is about the additional position for Salisbury Elementary. First of all, I think it's a great idea. I know Zach's working his butt off down there and doing a great job. He doesn't even have time to shave anymore. So, but my question for Mike is how does that position impact the budget? I mean, I got to be honest, and that is important. How do we plan to work that into there?
So when we started this year's budget process, we started with rolling over the budgeted amounts from the prior year, plus adding in any contractual required increases for all staff. And in last year's budget, you know, Randy was the superintendent for half the year, and we had to factor in some of his severance and payouts. And also when we passed the budget last year, Grace Hartman had not retired yet. So we had her full salary in the budget for last year. So as the board started talking about the potential of doing something like this, we did not take that out of the budget. So you still have all that additional money, and the increase, if the board, once the board accepts the nomination and promotes Kelly, you're not adding two big salaries. There'll be an increase for the assistant superintendent position that'd be appropriate for the position, right? But that really it's only one new salary. So it's one new salary and then it'd be an increase. So there's money already in the budget for it. You know, so there's not really an issue with adding funds that weren't already budgeted with the budget that was approved in June for the district.
Okay. And the other comment that I just wanted to say is thank the administration for doing due diligence to seek out as many candidates as possible and the due diligence to interview all of them and to really make sure we find the best fit, which I do believe we have for our district. I think it's important that everybody knows that we took the time to find the right person.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Sam, did you want to continue your statement?
Everybody done? I don't want to jump in too quick. Yes, I'd like to move a motion to refer the nominee to the Personnel Committee.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. Any additional comments or discussion or questions concerning this? Okay, that being said, do we have to do roll call with this, Mike or Lynn, or can we just do a voice? Okay. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Kelly. You deserve it.
Thank you, George. And thank you to the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and officially we'll be getting, the Personnel Committee will be addressing this in more detail.
So George, the other piece of that, the Personnel Committee would enter negotiations with Mrs. Pauling, and I would like to post for the assistant principal position as soon as tomorrow. And I would expect that it will take us a period of time. We will not be able to likely start the school year with an assistant principal. There are a variety of factors there that would impact that, but the sooner we post, the better.
Okay, so what do you need from us in order to do that? Just a vote, or for you to proceed?
We don't need a vote. I don't really need the board's permission to post. The board would approve the position when the board approves the candidate on the board agenda, but I'm looking for informal support from the board or to hear if there are any concerns from the board that this plan does not sound viable or as a good use of our resources.
Okay, with a just show of hands, does Lynn have our support to do that? Okay.
All right, thank you. Congratulations to Kelly, as you have certainly impacted our district, and we appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm happy to be able to stay here and continue that work.
All right.
Okay, so that takes us to the policy committee. Audrey, do you have anything?
I'm grateful, George, that for this evening, we don't have anything new in the policies that we are reviewing.
Okay, thank you. Joe, any student activities to present?
None tonight, George.
Okay. That takes us to the reports. The first one being CLIU, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you. We had our board meeting on June the 21st, and the highlight of the evening was the presentation for all the training and consultation and educational services that are provided to all the districts, and how quickly a topic may come up and it's put upon the IU to quickly put classes together or documentation together to share it out to from the IU to the school districts. They also shared their annual safety report. We did approve a contract between the IU and the Education Association for the next 3 years. The other matters were the normal for bill paying and personnel matters. There were some of you all received ballots. We did vote in a number of board members. In addition, we approved some classroom space. As you know, the IU, as I've mentioned before, the IU cannot be an owner of a school building, so space is rented. They also approved the programs and services for the next school year for all the different categories. And officer nominations were taken, and they'll be voted on at the next board meeting, which is this coming Monday evening. And that is my board report.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
You're welcome.
Okay, that takes us to Lehigh Carbon Community College. Mr. DeFrank, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. Our meeting was July 1st for our board meeting. There we found out some good news from our president that $1.6 million had been allotted by the state to help community college students that either have one semester or a course to complete their degree. So there's scholarship money for them to help them go on either their path of education or join the workforce. That was passed through for Governor Wolf, so that was great news. Also, we had a presentation, which it just amazed me the thing they're trying to do to help their students. And this was on Success Coach, where they go in and look at, identify students that may be having challenges or difficulties throughout their student life or their personal life, which may involve as far as homelessness, hunger, overemployed. They may be working several jobs to provide for their family, as well as mental health, and help them understand what the challenge is and help them get back on gear to get through their school. And has been extremely successful to where they're going to now expand this to coaches for the faculty. A lot of faculty are very stressful times doing things in a different mode outside that to help them to get through difficult periods. And one of the things they want to do is do this with compassion and with respect to all these different people, to get rid of the stigma that when you need assistance, there's nothing wrong with that. And their mantra is everybody needs help, whether you're struggling through this or if you're even a successful straight A student, there may be sometimes you need a coach in your life to help you out with. So they're going to make this broad base from the success they've had with these students and expand it further. And I just applaud them from what they're doing from the onset and bringing this across the whole spectrum there. So that is my report, Mr. Contanis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeFrank. Okay, that takes us to LCTI, Mrs. Nemitz.
All right, I'm going to keep this really quick. We had our last meeting on June the 23rd. During that week, LCTI held Camp LCTI for 5th through 8th graders from all of their sending districts. They had 144 campers attend 14 different programs. It's a phenomenal week. I say my 2 boys went and they just spoke so highly of the activities that they got to participate in. And thankfully for all of us, they participated in some of the cooking programs. So I always had great snacks on the drive home, which was a nice benefit. The world of virtual CTE is growing rapidly. So LCTI is debuting virtual courses for 5 of their program areas. What still needs to be clarified is how some of the in-person skill assessment will take place and how work experience will happen. But that is in process at LCTI, and enrollment for the fall semester is currently at 723 new students. They're typically around 850 new students per year, so it's a little bit lower in the past, but there's still chance for that to grow. And our next meeting is in person at the end of August.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, that takes us to PSBA. Either Audrey Frick or Becky Glenister, do you have any thing you'd like to report on?
I'll keep it brief also, George. When I looked up at the PSBA website, the first thing that was attracting my attention were the upcoming events. And they will be having an equity summit, developing systems of equity for a new generation, because as you know, that's a topic of concern, a topic of interest for schools and school boards alike over the last couple of years, but definitely in this next upcoming year. Part of that equity summit also includes a webinar for PSBA members on July 8th on the topic of the pandemic funding, the ESSER funds that Ms. Funi-Hinton was discussing, planning and understanding the engagement of our stakeholders in regards to how to use those ESSER funds. That'd be an interesting webinar to attend. And then you can also go to a school leadership conference at that same time period, September 27. It's right before the conference, and it develops an onboarding plan for new school board directors. So we do have a plan for new school board directors as we change as we have elections. So it'd be something to think about to see if we could either attend this or virtually attend this conference. Just as a reminder, there is such thing as a Pennsylvania School Board Association legislative platform, and the priority issues are actually the kind of issues that we have been discussing today. So it is also possible for proposals if we want to do anything else that we think is important. Last year we did sign a document about making meaningful changes for charter school reform and addressing Pennsylvania's pension fund crisis. So if we do want to make any proposals, we can always do that, get together as a group and decide if there's anything else we think we want to change on the Pennsylvania School Board Association's platform. And that is all that I have for right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Audrey. Informative. Okay, that takes us to our solicitor's report. Ms. Christine Roddick from King Spry. Do you have a report for us?
Actually, I do this evening. So as you may recall, during public comment at the last board meeting, it was alleged that the district violated the Sunshine Act with regards to a discussion regarding the hiring of an assistant superintendent. We did an investigation into that. It was reported that at the executive session, information was shared with the board by Ms. Funi-Hinton regarding specific supplemental duties acquired by a number of district employees due to the vacancy in the assistant superintendent position, as well as a number of options for the hiring of additional administrative support, including an assistant superintendent. The board asked about options and supported Ms. Fooney-Hetton's decision to post the position for the potential hiring of an assistant superintendent. This executive session was challenged basically on two grounds. The first was that the announcement regarding the executive session prior to the next board meeting was not specific enough. And the second ground of challenge was that the board's decision was required to be deliberated in a public meeting. With regards to the first challenge, I did review the cases that were cited during the public comment, and all of those cases pertain to the litigation exception in the Sunshine Act. While Pennsylvania courts have addressed numerous personnel issues under the Sunshine Law, on several occasions, I have not directly spoken to the specificity required for the announcement of executive sessions regarding personnel or any of the other exceptions other than the litigation exception. With regards to the second challenge, the big issue is whether or not the board deliberated during that time. There is a Lehigh County case involving the Southern Lehigh School District and the Morning Call, in which the board in executive session had discussed and reduced the number of potential applicants for a superintendent position. And the court did their analysis and they concluded that that was not deliberation because to be a vote that constitutes official action, it must be on a matter that commits the agency to a course of conduct. So what was legally required to be done was that the board vote on the applicant and or the applicant's contract in a public meeting. So based upon our analysis, we concluded that there was not a Sunshine Act violation. In addition, even if there is an argument that could be made that one did occur, by the board discussing it this evening, it cured any alleged violation. So any questions?
Any questions for Christine? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Roddick. Thank you for that explanation. That's why we have you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that takes us to the superintendent report. Ms. Fooney-Hetton, please.
Okay, a couple of quick items here tonight. We are still hiring. We are in need of instructional assistants. So if we have any community members out there, or you have college students who are taking classes locally, or friends or family, we are looking for instructional assistants. We do need 11 instructional assistants across the district. So you can visit our webpage to see what other current job openings we have, but help us spread the word.
Excuse me, Lynn, those instructional assistants, do you need them beyond September and beyond?
September and beyond, yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that here. A couple of updates here are some of the, we are busy in the summer. We do have some teachers working, leaders are working, our support staff, we have members working. So want to share a few things that have been going on. Kindergarten screening, over 50 students have been screened, and we have a second date on August 10th. If we have any families who still need to register, please call the elementary school so that you can go ahead and get registered. As you heard me say before, Mrs. Pauling worked with Mr. Brim and our staff to include a speech screening and initial ESL screening. Families had the opportunity to take a tour, and we did provide the fun backpack of supplies with some suggestions for families to help their learners at home. We do have a variety of summer programs, the STEAM camp, we have the SES summer program, 67 participants, which is more students than we've had in the past. Our special education department has organized ESY and CCS. We also have summer library, And we have quite a few students attending SMS and SHS summer school. So a shout out to our families who are partaking in these summer programs, and also our staff for developing and facilitating the programs. We'll provide more information on this in an upcoming board meeting, but we are reviewing Act 13 legislation, which regulates evaluation for professional staff members, so teachers and professional staff, as well as leaders. We're learning about what the changes are, creating some updated protocols and documents. We have a differentiated supervision handbook for staff that we're updating, and this will also affect our new employee induction program. So spending some time working on that with our building leaders and our central office leaders. We haven't shared this information in the past and want to provide some additional information about our funding sources. These are our federal funds. We have multiple grants through our federal funds. The first that I'm highlighting here is Title I. Title I funds go directly to Salisbury Elementary School. Sorry about that. Oh no, not the mouse problem. Okay. Salisbury Elementary School to support our Title I goals. We have a preliminary allocation for 21-22 of $610,000 plus, and that is an increase of $143,000 from 2020-21. This money is used for reading and math resources, our summer program, after school program, some staff salaries, and supplies. We also set aside some money to increase and improve our community and parent engagement, maybe running some parent workshops, trying to extend the work that we've done with the kindergarten screening to help build our connection between home and school. Title II, this grant is primarily for professional development for our support staff and our professional staff. We received an allocation of $80,000. That is an increase of about almost $9,000 from previous years. And we are required to give some of these funds to our local non-public schools, Lehigh Christian Academy, Swain, and St. Thomas More. Title III, this is our ESL. So ensuring that our limited English proficiency learners have opportunities, and using these funds to implement language programs to help these learners achieve the standards. We had an increase of $2,600 approximately, for a total of almost $16,000. This money goes to staff salaries for additional hours, technology support, professional learning, and also some supplies. Title IV, the purpose of Title IV funding is to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education, improve conditions for learning, and also the use of technology. Again, our non-public schools may apply for a portion of these funds. We received an allocation, a preliminary allocation of about $35,000, almost more than double that what we received last year. And we're looking at spending that money on curriculum development for our K-4 STEM special, resources for computer programming class at Salisbury High School, some social emotional reading, social emotional learning resources, for example, adding a sensory room at the middle school. So we have a lot of work to do with grants in the summer, and that is my report.
Thank you, Ms. Hinton.
You're welcome.
Okay. That takes us to any new business from the board.
Hey, George, I don't know if this falls under new business. We don't have an old business section on
Sorry?
We don't have an old business section on the agenda, do we? Or do we just?
Well, I'm sure that when we say new business, if it involves old stuff, that's fine.
No, that's fine. I just had a quick question for Mike. We discussed a survey regarding express busing, and I was just wondering to know if we had made any progress with that.
So that was something that we were coordinating with Mark Donnelly, our transportation coordinator. I'll have to follow up with him in the morning and see where he is with that. But that should have gone. I don't believe it's gone out yet, but it should be going out very shortly if it hasn't.
Yeah, no, the sooner the better. Just because I know myself. We're already trying to like work out timeframes with work and get them on buses and things like that. So the sooner the better. That'd be great.
Yep, and then I'll follow up with a message to the board just to let them know the status of that.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Okay, that takes us to citizens' inquiries and comments. Mr. Taylor, do we have anybody signed up for that?
We currently have 5 people signed up. Paul Dorney is first, but I'm not seeing him in the list anymore. So we'll go with Julie Sawyer, followed by Thomas Spinner. And Julie, you should be able to talk now. Julie, you're on mute.
Hi, I had, this is Julie Sawyer. I had put my comment in the chat. I wasn't really going to read it out loud, but I guess I.
That's fine, Julie. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do you want me to read it out loud or no?
It's your choice.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you guys can all see it, then just.
I read it, Julie. I read it, Julie.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, we'll go with Thomas Spinner, followed by Russell Landy. All right, Tom.
Good evening again, everyone. And I know it's been a long night for you all, but I just wanted to wish you all a warm welcome from Henrietta, Oklahoma. So the reason why I say that is based off of the comments before about we're going back to the in-person option and then the change from the Zoom platform over to the YouTube and removing the ability to have public comment through Zoom. I think, especially from my perspective, while I don't have any quantitative data, surely qualitatively speaking, I think it's been pretty clear that over the past year, participation has been increased greatly from previous years with the use of the Zoom platform, especially for some folks like myself who travel a lot, as well as some others. I wanted to just make the comment and a recommendation to the board here is that in the administration that you would reconsider allowing the Zoom platform to be in place, because I can say for myself personally, you would not have any participation from me, especially when I'm traveling, with the ability to get written statements to you guys. And I think this is a great form that allows folks the ability to speak to you all and give you feedback. So I would just, again, implore you to reconsider the use of the Zoom platform going forward in addition to the in-person meetings. I do appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you all this way, and I'm sure others do as well. So again, thank you for your time. I know it's been a long night.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, we have Russell Landy, followed by Ali Alcohol. All right, Mr. Landy.
Yes, just a couple of things. We talked a lot about the masks. I won't beat a dead horse, but it wasn't addressed whether or not masks are going to be required at the meetings, which are now going to be held in one of the buildings near this school. So that's the first thing, is our masks going to be required at the meetings, or how is that all going to work? Secondly, is the enforcement of these masks that we were talking about. If that we should go to that, how do you enforce that? How do you verify what students do have vaccinations or staff and who don't? And how is that all going to play out? I think that would open a rather large Pandora's box. The other thing, again, was the cost of litigation to not only defend potentially some actions that might come before the board. I don't know if there's qualified immunity, but if there's not, potentially members of the board are opening themselves up. And I don't know if that's a can of worms that you want to do. Also, one of the board members, I don't know exactly which one, mentioned they work in schools or whatever. Anyway, kind of the impression I got is about the bullying, it's not going to happen. We have policies on that. So really my response would be, if you think bullying doesn't happen in the schools, and especially in the Salisbury School District, I think that's kind of out of touch. Nationwide, every 100 minutes, a teen commits suicide, and some of that is in part because of bullying. Bullying is never going to go away. It's just hidden. So to think that kids won't be bullied over this mask thing, that's not realistic at all. So I'm telling you, bullying does go on. It's not realistic to think that it doesn't. The next thing is, a board member said, I think it bothers the parents more than it bothers the kids about this mask thing. I kind of find that a little condescending, to be quite honest with you. I don't know about, I know one of the members have 17 grandkids in the school and it doesn't bother them. And I think that's great for you and your 17 grandkids. But there are a lot of members of the community where it does bother our kids, and my child's in the school, and it certainly bothers her to wear it. Yeah, it bothers me too, but it bothers her. So not to take anything away from your 17 grandkids that it doesn't bother, but I'm telling you, there's at least one member, and I'm sure that there's far more than that. Another member said something to the effect of, you know, pushing this thing as long as we can with this whole thing with this mandates and everything else. I sort of get the impression that that's what's going on. We're pushing this as long and as far as we can get it. This is going to go on. You're right. This is going to go on a long time. As we can see, even at a national level, policies are made out of COVID and monies and budgets and things like that. And a lot of people are gaining from it too, a lot of changes. So I don't think we've seen the end of COVID, but not necessarily for the reason that you're stating. Another member had said something about transportation on buses and planes. They need masks and addressing that in this thing that the superintendent was making changes. At first, I didn't know if you were joking or if that was condescending. Like, because that's sort of ridiculous to think that we wouldn't know that you need a mask on a bus or on a plane like this day and age. So for a board member to say that, I'm not even sure why you would have to say that, because we're rather intelligent individuals and we do know things. And we do know that if you're going on a plane and things like that, you need a mask, or at least for the kids. So anyway, also there's mention about the money.
You've exceeded your 3 minutes, Mr. Landy. If you can try to wrap it up.
Okay. The last thing that I'll say is that if there's any extra money in the budget, I would certainly suggest it go to the IAs with the 11 openings, because right now they only make $13.72 an hour. And the money that went to the assistant superintendent, which I think is great, maybe that money could have gone to the IAs. But if there's any money left over, I strongly suggest it goes to all the teachers and administrators in the entire district, if there's any money hidden down there in the budget. Thank you.
All right, we have Ellie Passman, alcohol, and you should be able to talk now.
Hi, thank you. I live at a...
Oh, sorry, Ellie, I think we accidentally lost it. There you go. Sorry, you should be able to speak now. We have you on mute though.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank the board for reviewing the health and safety requirements and giving parents the opportunity to make their own decision on masks. As a parent who opted to homeschool last year, this has been a huge deciding factor as to whether or not to keep my daughter home again this year. I also want to thank Mr. Ganal for bringing up the express busing. That was actually why I put my name on here, because I hadn't heard it discussed. And that is also another deciding factor as to whether or not I will be sending my daughter to first grade next year. We live in Western Salisbury on the border. The other side of my street is Parkland. And so my daughter would be on the bus for a very long time and potentially wearing a mask for almost 7 hours in the day. While I am not opposed to masks by any stretch, I do not want her to have one on that long. So I want to thank you guys for reevaluating this and allowing us to make that decision for our children. I want to congratulate Kelly Pauline on the new position. She has been a great help actually in helping with the curriculum for us to make sure that my daughter would be prepared to re-enter Salisbury for first grade. However, I am disappointed that this position is being filled. It was made very clear to us. I think many of us were under the impression, as you have heard us reiterate over and over, that we were not under the impression that this was only a 6-month time period to decide as to whether this was going to happen. But again, I do want to express that I am pleased with the selection in Kelly. I think she will do a great job. So anyway, thank you. And I hope you guys will seriously consider the express bus. I know there are a lot of other Western Salisbury parents who are anxiously waiting to hear about the potential for that for our students. Thank you.
All right, we have Megan Stevens. And All right, Megan.
I just kind of want to address comments that I see and hear from community members a lot. A lot of them are disparaging. We heard some of them just moments ago, things that were misconstrued. And I just want to say that the school board has a tough job and they do the best they can with the resources that are available. And they have to make decisions about what is best, not for just one student. It's not just for my student or your student, it's for all the students. And there have been comments that have been made by parents about the mask wearing and bullying. And the parent before me that said about the school board member said that bullying doesn't happen. That's not what they said. They said that we have policies in place to deal with bullying, not that it doesn't happen. I know that bullying happens, but you know what? Problems like that starts at home. And in my experience, those who speak the loudest are the biggest bullies. And I just kind of challenge you that if you don't like what goes on in the district, to look at other districts in the area and move there, because the grass is not always greener on the other side. And we actually have it pretty good, because I have friends who live in other districts who do not have it as good as we do. And I just want everybody to kind of think about that when they make comments that they do about the school board not caring about our kids. I mean, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. And you guys probably don't need to be defended, but I just feel like sometimes we should be speaking up for you guys, because you guys do a lot for us. Thanks, and I just hope everybody has a great night.
And Mr. Katanis, that was the last person signed up to speak. Actually, Christopher Freeze just jumped in. So let's get Chris on real quick, and there's currently nobody after him.
Okay.
I'll be very quick because I know it's been a long meeting. Christopher Freeze, 1137 Patricia Drive. I just wanted to echo what Mr. Spinner had said, and just ask, we had obviously had a lot of community participation tonight, and I hope that as we move back to live in-person meetings, that we can find a way to keep that momentum. So if we can find a way, and it may not be Zoom, but if there's a way to have a dial-in or something, so that people have a way, if they can't all get in the building, to be able to be able to give their voice to the meetings. I hope we can consider that before August. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. I know it's been a long meeting. I appreciate everything you're doing. Have a good night.
All right, Mr. Katanis, that now is the end of the public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, that takes us to upcoming meetings. And we canceled the August 4th operations meeting. We canceled the August 4th curriculum meeting. Then we will have a meeting August 18th at the admin building at 6:30, executive session, that is at 6:30. Then a regular board meeting will follow that, 7:30 at the admin building on August 18th. Operations committee meeting on September 1st at 7, an executive session on September 15th at 6:30, regular board meeting September 15th at 7:30, and the curriculum and technology committee meeting is on September 27th at 7 o'clock, and they're all at the admin building. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Katanis.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And thanks to the public. And thank you, admin team, the entire staff, for everything you do.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you to
See y'all
our
later
public for attending. We appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.